summarize what you have experienced in the last 4 years. Now that you've seen that very closely, and you have the perspective of how product management and products are emerging globally. Where do you see India? Where do you see the Indian, excellence and commitment to the products and product management? Any other summary thoughts on India product management?
Well, I mean, this has been a wonderful journey during these 4 years so far, and hopefully continuing for a long time. I think we have made a lot of progress, both as ISPMA, as an organization in India, but also I see a lot of progress in the Indian software industry. Like I said in the beginning, from a European perspective, we have worked with Indian software companies for the last 25 years, but primarily with professional service companies who took over software development tasks for European companies. And I think it has been similar for US software vendors. So what we are seeing more and more is that Indian companies go into a product business. We are seeing that with professional service organizations who establish a product business in addition to their professional service business. I mean, you have been working in that area for a long time with Infosys. We are seeing European and US companies establishing subsidiaries in India and giving more and more product responsibility to these subsidiaries, which means that they need global product managers based in India. We are also seeing a lot of activity in the startup world, and that is, I think, the same in India as it is in Europe and the US. The startup companies all think in terms of products and not in terms of professional services. So there's a lot of need in the startup world for software product management skills. And I'm very happy that ISPMA is going to address that need pretty soon.
No, absolutely. No, I think you said it. In India, while sometimes we were late to the party, but we leapfrog. So the same thing is happening in product management and the products as well. Now, Indian startups are amazingly good, and they are world beaters, and there are many products coming up, and it's. I'm glad that our initiative. In fact, thanks to you and ISPMA board for encouraging me to write the syllabus for software intensive startups. Which of course is in its final stages of a review by the fellow members and the board, which should be releasing soon. But it's very timely. In a way. When we thought about, in the initial stages of the product management, there weren't too many to be addressed, as because we had quite a good amount of startups, but not mature product companies out of India. So that's where, in fact, when I was working with various companies through my students' live projects, I was able to not only actually perceive the need clearly, and also articulate in your startup terms the problem definition and the problem solution fit, so to say, in our early days of iterating the syllabus. And that's very interesting. So the startup syllabus is coming up. As I see, it took some time because, like any other startup, we had to really look at not only the problem solution fit, but the product market fit as well. This again, thanks to the ICSOB conference, where I validated the model of the heat maps, because product in startups is a very small focus, because they wouldn't have the entire 360-degree view of it. And so you needed to really have a very laser sharp focus in product management. So that's where we developed what we call the heat map to really look at contextual product management prioritization for the startups, and which was received very well in the academic conference in ICSOB. And then, of course, in Slush, we did workshop for about 50 plus founders, who felt this was the model. They could use the product management practices to really effectively validate the product market fit. And of course, after the syllabus was done, we did the dry runs with some of the Indian startup founders, did full-fledged workshops for them. Thanks to SOM and, some of the IoT based startups, they were very early adapters or adopters of this startup, model. But yes, I'm quite excited that this is going to be very relevant and timely, particularly for Indian context, because there are lots of product companies coming up, and they can benefit. And from this foundation, rather startup syllabus, and can make reduce their iterations to market product fit. That will be amazing. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is to some degree another proof of the validity of ISPMA's SPM framework, that this heat map approach does work for startups, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, the basis of ISPMA's body of knowledge is our SPM framework, which shows in a very condensed way on one piece of paper all the activities that are relevant for software product managers in software organizations. And what your work has proven is that even for the startup situation, this framework is valid, but of course, the startups will not do everything from the very beginning, but need to focus on particular areas and need to apply special approaches and techniques in those areas in the beginning in order to achieve problem solution fit and product market fit. But it is a kind of evolutionary approach to software product management, because as soon as the startup is successful and gets bigger, more and more of the elements of the SPM framework become relevant for that company.
Correct.
And I think that's a wonderful outcome of your work.
Thank you. In fact, what we did was the first assumption after I really deep dived in that, and we realized, and actually, a lot of literature and reviews, etc., is that a startup is not a smaller version of a business enterprise. To go back to my analogy, a caterpillar is not a smaller version of a butterfly, or nor a tadpole, a smaller version of a frog. So we had to really revisit and say that what is a startup? Startup is not a business enterprise, but it is an experiment to validate and find a business model. So from that point of view, the motivation for the product manager is different in a startup
Absolutely.
compared to a regular business. So we had to really address from that point of view. So what are the drivers for the product management? And again, the challenge was that when we were talking to, and you were there in some of the conversations, early stage startups, they said, "Oh, we don't need a product manager. We are too small for that." It's not that they didn't have product management. So the moment you have a product concept or a problem defined, from there on, there is a product manager. It's just that one or many of the product managers, founders are sharing the load of the role of that product management, but product management doesn't go away. And of course, we found as we evolved, as you said, evolving is the right word. We said that again, the product management concept as well as the application are different for early stage and the growth stage.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once you get the scale-ups is a lot more closer to the mature product companies.
Yeah.
But these early stages and the growth stages were two different beasts, if you will. And so we had to really address the priorities of those. And it was indeed fun working with many of you and lots of fellow members as well as industry participants working and supporting in writing the syllabus.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's why I said. I mean, in the early stages of a startup, you need different approaches, different techniques to achieve what you want to achieve. But the the nice thing is that all of this maps into the structure. Mhm. So that
Right.
that I think is a kind of validation to the SPM framework as a structure.
No, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned about the framework and the the emergence of the, in a way, if you really look at one of the critical pieces which I looked at when you invited me to the board, and why ISPMA, why not some other methodology. What really struck me was this 360-degree view of product management, which is very important because you can take various slice and dice of it, either a product owner's view or a product marketeer's view. But product management is not unidimensional. It is multidisciplinary. It is an integrated leadership role, and it requires a 360-degree view. That is where our reference architecture and our framework is handy, because it actually puts the spotlight on each and every area which a product manager or the founder has to look at. So in a way, interesting that we went there. The syllabus is not for product managers alone, but it is for the founders. The entire narrative in that is for the founders to really wear the founders hat and see product management. And to help them, we also are structuring a certification program. Hopefully the trainings would be tailored for about 12 hours of instruction time, or 1.5 hours, 1.5 days training. And I'm sure very soon we should be looking for certifications as well to help the startup community get a kind of a predictability into the whole aspect of product management
Yes,
using this structured framework.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I think this will really be helpful for a lot of these startup companies. And like you said, I mean, uh, you do not necessarily have to have the role of software product manager in the organization, but you already need to do the tasks,
Yes.
whoever does it. And very often it will be the founders. But
Hans-Bernd,
I also
yes,
see this as relevant for new product development teams in more established
oh,
software.
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was another aspect. In fact, the whole thing started with a workshop with a couple of our fellow fellow members, Barbara Heusel and Samuel Fricker, Professor Samuel Fricker, and we did the 2-day workshop in Zurich. Actually, one of the critical factors which both Samuel and Barbara brought about is that it's not about the startups which are starting from zero. In fact, many of the large companies, they want to work like startups, or they would like to really look at structure their innovation labs and new products the way startups would approach. So can you extend the syllabus and your thought process to them? There again, they are very different. They are not funding strapped, but they have different challenges for them. So we covered that as well in this, particularly when they are going into new products and new markets, what we call the new growth engines. So the uncertainties and unknowns are similar to a startup, though of course funding may not be a challenge, but still, they would have the same challenges of product market fit and problem solution fit, and each of these, challenges which product management faces in a startup context.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, there are differences how mature companies handle this and set up these teams for new product development. Some of them do it like you just described, where they try to create a separate space where these teams can act like startups, which is difficult in established organizations, but some manage to do that. The more the new product development team has to work with the established procedures and rules and processes, the more difficult it usually becomes, and that is part of the challenge that you are facing in when you try radical, innovative new product development inside of established organizations.
Right. And also, in a way, if you really look at many of these, orchestration challenges would be of different nature. They are not directly orchestrating, but they need to still work like a startup with a different ecosystem of partners and markets outside the organization, which in itself could be a challenge because they are part of another larger organization, and that brand itself, pushed a bit of hurdles for them. Whereas another ecosystem partner would consider a lot more favorably a new startup. Whereas, if you're part of another large organization, your ability to forge those partnerships in ecosystem could be different. You compete, but you collaborate. So how do you bring in that cooperation part of it is another interesting challenge.
Absolutely.
When you're in a large product, large company, new product. All in all, I think it's very exciting as we complete 4 years of journey. And of course, we touched almost, now we are 900 plus active followers and members in the community in India. And of course, you would see the bigger picture. We have more than 60, 70, certified members. And then the active network is, increasing every day. There is lots of conversations happening through master classes, etc. But yes, still it is a young nation, young product nation as well, and young community of product managers. So every day we wake up to learn many new things. So that's where the excitement is.
Absolutely. That's what keeps us on our toes, right?
Perfect. So we could conclude this conversation.
Well, congratulations again, Hara, and I'm looking forward to being a part of this journey for the years to come.